Good afternoon. Traumatic events can do crazy things to our faith. You might have believed in a strong and loving God your entire life, and then a crisis comes along that forces you to explore new beliefs. You may face a challenge in which it's natural for you to ask questions such as, how do I really know that God exists? How do I know that the Bible is true? How can I know that God cares about me? Now, I could sit here and give you all sorts of philosophical and theological explanations about the existence of God. Philosophers of religion over the years have played this game of ping pong about the existence of God. Someone presents an argument for the existence of God, then someone else comes along to poke holes in it, then someone else comes along to answer those holes, and then someone else comes up with more holes, and so on, continually back and forth. But if you're struggling with the question about whether or not God exists, whether he cares about you, I suspect you're not looking for answers in your head, but for answers in your heart. No intellectual proof for the existence of God will ultimately satisfy you, even if I could present one for you. And as the unexpected theologian, late-night talk show host Stephen Colbert once put it, faith ultimately can't be argued. Faith has to be felt. The best answer to the question about the existence of God goes back to what Jesus told Thomas after his resurrection. Thomas wasn't in the room the first time that the risen Jesus came to his disciples, and Thomas refused to believe that Jesus was risen from the dead until he could see and touch him for himself. So when Jesus came back the next time, he told Thomas to touch his wounds in his side and in his hands to know that he was real. When Thomas believed because of the irrefutable evidence in front of him, Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Now, unlike Thomas, we face the challenge of believing without seeing. We put faith in God without having hard evidence that he even exists. In a sense, Thomas represents the scientific method. A hypothesis can only be accepted through observable, verifiable evidence, but no such evidence exists when it comes to God. Well, if it's any consolation, there's also no observable, verifiable evidence that proves that God doesn't exist. If you want to base your belief in God strictly on evidence, you're going to be forced to be an agnostic. You can't say one way or the other. Christians and atheists both believe something that they can't prove. Belief in God runs backwards. You don't believe in God because there's evidence to prove that he exists. Instead, once you believe in God, the evidence that God exists will start to come to you. It's only after you believe in God that you really know that God is real. You don't base your knowledge upon evidence that you can present to convince someone else, but you believe in God based on something that touches you and moves you in a way that no observable evidence or no finely crafted argument ever could. Anselm, one of the great medieval theologians, put it this way. In Latin, he said, "Credo ut intelligans," which simply means, "I believe in order that I might understand." His slogan was not, "I understand in order that I might believe," but "I believe in order that I might understand." Belief comes first, and understanding follows. To put it bluntly, faith in God is a gamble. You stake your life on the fact that he exists, that he cares for you, and that he has a power to change your life. It is only after you've put all your chips on the table that you find out that the gamble was worth it. Jesus once met a man who was going through his own trauma. His son had been possessed by a spirit that rendered him speechless and threw him into convulsions. Now, some people may speculate that the boy suffered from a medical condition that was unknown to the ancients, but that's a conversation for another time. The desperate man pleaded with Jesus, "If you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." And Jesus focused on the man's use of the word if. If you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. The father's faith either had never really been all that strong, or his faith had faded away as he watched his son suffer. Now, Jesus could have chided the father for his doubts. He could have told the poor fellow that help would come only if he believed strongly enough. And that, by the way, is a terribly guilt-producing statement that far too many people employ. If only you believe strong enough, then God will heal you. And if God doesn't heal you, well then, I guess you don't believe enough. No, that is not what Jesus said. Instead, he reminded the man of the possibilities that come from faith. Jesus told the father, everything is possible for the one who believes. And in one of the most honest and poignant expressions of faith that we find in the Bible, the man responded, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." And Jesus responded by healing his son. We, like the father in this story, use whatever amount of faith we have in order to come to God. And we ask him to help us overcome our unbelief. We ask him to bolster what belief we do have so that we might experience what he seeks to provide to us. Would you pray with me, please? Lord, whether or not we believe in you is not some intellectual game, but it's a matter of the heart. So help us, Lord, when we waver in our faith in you. Help us to be like this father and come to you and say, "Help my unbelief. Take what little faith I have and help it grow and flourish so that I may enjoy the fullness of life that you desire for each of us." Amen. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk again later.